Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. What's going on, guys? Have you tried out the new Worlim Frost King? I say new, it's been, a few weeks now since the big Void rebalancing, which truly wasn't that big. They nailed it on the legendary champions, hit or miss on the epics, and they really dropped the ball in terms of buffing a lot of rare Voids that could use a big buff inside the game, because Voids ought to be a lot more powerful than, non-Void champions, because Void shards are a premium commodity inside the game, right? The only thing being higher is legendary skill tomes and sacred shards, right? So anyway, going on to the three champions they buffed, Vizixi Bode is now very good, and also Solus is now good, a good champion. I'm not going to sit here and call him like S tier inside the game, but a definitely a serviceable champion. By the way, I like him in an Avenging set, 45% chance to counterattack when hit with a critical hit, and on his A1 he has that stun, so you're basically stunning, provoking, counterattacking. But this video is not about Solus. This video is about Worlim Frost King, who was the first Battle Pass champion. A lot of people upset that he was the first Battle Pass champion. Myself, at the risk of getting 1 million dislikes on this video, gotta be honest though at the end of the day, right?
Or better still, stop inflicting your opinions on the world.
I actually always had a soft spot for Worlim Frost King. I was in the minority of players who thought that he was a decent legendary champion. Now, it's still a shame to see a decent legendary champion added to the Void legendary champion pool, because when you pull a Void legendary, it ought to be a momentous occasion. It ought to be an account-changing event that happens to you. And I think the new Wurlim, or at least I'm going to try to convince you guys of such, is just that. I feel like this guy is now in a league of his own, and what a lot of endgame players, YouTubers, content creators, myself included, fail to mention a lot of times, or I should say what we neglect oftentimes, is that to be an S tier legendary champion in this game doesn't mean that you have to be S tier to the top 0.000.1% or 0.1% of the game, right? You know what I'm saying? You can be an S tier game-changing champion to 99% of the player base, and that's exactly what I think Worlim Frost King is. I think a lot of endgame players can benefit from him as well, because they change his aura, right? So let's start with his aura. Increase allied defense in Doom Tower battles by 40%. So now we have a 40% Doom Tower aura defense lead. That's an insane Doom Tower aura, right? And Doom Tower is the end game of Raid Shadow Legends. So already a lot of endgame players can benefit from him, assuming they could benefit from the rest of his kit, which again, I'm going to implore you guys to consider, right? Even you endgame players watching. But if you're anybody but an endgame player, if you're just starting out and you pulled the Wurlim, if you had him from Battle Pass, kind of chilling in your vault, he's really good now. They changed his Ice Grave armor from a 4-turn cooldown when booked to a 3-turn cooldown when booked. Now he's one of the only 2 champions in the game with increased defense and Strengthen, has them on a 3-turn cooldown. Strengthen mitigates damage received by 25%, and increased defense increases your defense by 60% of your total defensive stat. Add that to the 40% on your base defense. I mean, he's bringing a ton of increased defense and sustainability to your team. One of the best supports in the game, and I'm not being hyperbolic there. He has Strengthen and increased defense on a 3-turn now. And that changed the way I'm building him quite a bit, along with his A2. His A2, they changed now as well. It used to have decreased damage. Now they added decreased accuracy, and it cannot be resisted. So you don't have to build him with accuracy. I'm not building him with accuracy despite his A1, which we'll talk about in a second. Also places increased crit damage on all allies for 2 turns. It also is attacking all enemies damage based on defense, and it's also on a 3-turn cooldown. So 100% chance when booked of placing a decreased crit damage, whatever, not a big fan of that debuff, and a decreased accuracy, more of a fan of decreased accuracy, but it's not a game changer debuff. The nice thing is they can't be resisted, so they're just automatic basically, which is really nice to have. We also have the increased crit damage, which I am a really big fan of. It will make your nuker, whether that be Seer or whether that be Kale, depending if you're end game, mid game, early game, it's gonna make your nuker a lot better. Especially enemy max HP champions benefit greatly from increased crit damage, talking about Cold Hearts, talking about Royal Guards, Husk, Septimus, etc. Seer. Alright, on the A1, attack 1 enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a freeze, okay? So this is based on defense. Or on accuracy. That'd be weird if it landed based on defense. It is based on accuracy. However, Places a perfect Veil buff on an ally with the lowest HP for 2 turns if the freeze debuff is placed. Places a Veil buff on the champion with the lowest HP for 1 turn if the freeze debuff is not placed. So what is a Veil and a perfect Veil doing? This is basic stuff, but I think what people think about when they think about Veils, I think a lot of the player base, and admit in the comments if you're one of them, I think that a lot of people look at Veils and they think, okay, so they can't be targeted. Well, perfect Veil, if you do damage while under a perfect Veil buff, you still cannot be targeted. But if you have a Veil buff on and you do damage, well, that's going to make you be, unveiled, so to speak, okay? So that's the difference between Perfect Veil and Veil, but there's another big difference that not a lot of people talk about. So with Perfect Veil, it's going to mitigate your damage as well from AoE attacks by 15%, okay? And I tuned into a stream, I'm not going to name the streamer, but the streamer was just talking about Veil and Perfect Veil, meaning like, who cares if you can't target a champion? And I didn't say anything, I didn't even, talk in the stream. But to me, I was just kind of lurking, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like, wow, the biggest part is under Perfect Veil, 15% AoE damage decrease. That's a lot added onto the strength and the decreased defense, etc., right? Under Veil, it's a 7.5 damage decrease from AoE attacks, okay? So you're getting a little bit more than just a not being able to be attacked out of these buffs. However, do I think the difference between a Perfect Veil and a Veil and an enemy on freeze warrants focusing a ton on accuracy? I say no, unless you're really, really looking for, if you have them in a retaliation set and you're really trying to get some CC, but a 50% chance, a coin flip chance anyway at 50% on the A1 of landing a freeze, is that a game changer worth building accuracy just for that ability and for the Perfect Veil versus Veil? In my opinion, it's not for most players. Now, that's a decision that you guys have to make on your own. I can't tell you. But I think now that they cannot be resisted on the decreased crit damage and decreased accuracy, I'd rather not have an accuracy banner on my Worlim Frost King. So in terms of masteries here, I went with War Master and I went with Lasting Gifts. Lasting Gifts is going to be very important, right? It will not...
Bye, have a great time.
It will not extend the duration of revive on death, block damage, or unkillable. We're not worried about that, but we can extend the duration on the increased crit damage, the strengthen, and the increased defense. I really like support tree now on this champion because, again, unless you have him on a retribution set or something like that, I don't think, especially without a ton of accuracy, it really necessitates grabbing retribution. I'd rather get the extra damage from War Master on the tier 6 mastery choice. But most importantly, I want to talk about the support tree and why I really love support tree now. Obviously, Lasting Gifts is going to be really important on this champion. I also grabbed Master Hex for a chance at extending the duration of the 2 debuffs that he has in his kit. I also went and grabbed Rapid Response, 30% chance of increasing the turn meter by 10% when a buff cast by this champion is removed or expired. Really a big fan of Rapid Response and Arcane Celerity on this champion. 30% chance of increasing the turn meter by 10% when a debuff cast by this champion is removed or expired. Those 2 debuffs cannot be resisted. They're on a 3-turn cooldown, and the 2 buffs are on a 3-turn, or 3 buffs, excuse me, are on a 3-turn cooldown, and he's buffing off of the Veil and debuffing off of the freeze on his A1, provided you have accuracy. So there's a lot of buffs and a lot of debuffs on low cooldowns in his kit, which makes him even better when you add those 2 masteries. So I think that Rapid Response and Arcane Celerity, for me, are almost mandatory for this champion. You'll also notice I picked up Steadfast, getting the extra almost 1k HP versus the 10 accuracy, where I'm not as concerned with accuracy anymore because they can't be resisted. So it gives me even more HP. Now, I totally redid the way that I built this champion. I'm spending a little bit extra time, obviously, here going over like this part of the video before we take him into battle, because I think the changes are really significant in terms of the build, the way we're building him, right? So I'm no longer building him for a ton of damage, right? He doesn't put out a ton of damage. He puts out a decent amount of damage for a defense-based champion.
Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Someone tell me how to feel.
But all I really care about now is I sacrificed accuracy, I sacrificed crit damage entirely. I'm still prioritizing a little bit of HP and defense, obviously, but I'm really caring about speed now. Because he has two of the best, most quintessential buffs in the game on a 3-turn cooldown and an increased crit damage on a 3-turn cooldown, my thought process now is with the Veil, not to mention the Veils as well in the A1, is get him going as often as possible, taking as many turns as possible. We'll not only be able to apply a decreased accuracy and a decreased damage pretty much permanently to a lot of enemies depending on their speed, but also we want to have increased crit damage up as much as possible, preferably all the time on our big nukers on our team. And last but not least, we want to have the strength and the increased defense. It's on a 3-turn cooldown. It lasts for 2 turns. Well, if he's going a lot faster than the rest of your team, you can get that up way more often than not on your team. So that was my thought process. So instead, I just really prioritize speed here, guys. So I'm looking for speed. I'm looking for a little bit of accuracy too in defense and HP, right? But it's really all about speed for me. So speed, speed, speed. I stuck with crit rate on my gauntlets because he does have an AoE on a 3-turn cooldown, and his A1 does put out some decent amount of damage as well. So I think crit rate is totally fine. If you still find that he's dying a lot, you can go with defense percentage on the gauntlets or even HP percentage. Defense percentage on the chest, again, divine speed with speed. I just went for speed everywhere that I could find it. So speed, 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 speed. That was all I really cared about. Now listen, you might not be able to get him to 280 speed, which I was able to do so with the gear that you guys just saw. However, even as long as he's the fastest on your team or the second fastest after your speed booster, I think that you're going to be looking really, really good, right? So treating him almost like a debuffer slash CC champion, a champion who you just want to go first on your team. So I have almost 4k defense, 47k HP. We talked about it in yesterday's video, but make sure you don't neglect HP on your defense-based champions. I'm aiming for around 4k for endgame content. Keep in mind, again, he's coming with stocked and loaded with the increased defense strengthen and the defensive aura for Doom Tower. Accuracy added a little bit, so he's landing his freeze off of his A1 against everything except for kind of like Doom Tower hard content, you know, with 209 accuracy. But again, I personally would just sacrifice that freeze on the A1 if you're just unable to build him, you know, with enough sustainability where he's dying. Because like, what good is he if he's dead? So that allowed me to go ahead and look for more speed and HP on my banner. We went defense on the amulet. I took crit damage off of him. I don't think it makes that much of a difference, guys. And I went with defense or HP on the ring. So defense HP on the ring, defense HP on the amulet, and defense HP on the banner. So we're building him a very, very kind of a tanky, fast buffer on my team. So that's how we have him built out, guys. He is, again, Void Affinity, so he can help you anywhere. So, I mean, I gave you a big, long pep talk about his kit there. What do you think? Am I making you a believer? I mean, he's bringing a lot to the table. Very unique champion. There's not many champions in the entire game like him. I want to say only... There could be a brand new champion who I'm forgetting here, but I want to say only... Is it Draco the Gaunt? Is he the only champion that has an increased defense strengthen on a 3-turn cooldown other than Wurlim? Let me check. Draco the Gaunt, and as you guys can see here, we have a, this is level 20 Fire Knight, or excuse me, Ice Golem. This team works on 24 as well, which is the most efficient place in terms of, you know, energy to better artifacts to farm. I'll show you on stage 24 just to show you that I'm not like lying to you guys, but it's going to take a lot less time to do it on stage 20, so we're doing stage 20 first. But the team is, Dark Elhain is our nuker. We have he pairs really well with healers, because one thing that he's not doing in terms of support is healing. So I have Ugo in there because she can heal, and she can also decrease defense. Like, she can be our debuffer on the team. And then I have 2 more healers. I have Apothecary as my aura lead for a dungeon, and then I have every turn healer.
Duh.
So I really only have 1 damage dealer on this team. If anything on this team, the one thing that we have to be careful of is not doing enough damage, because we have so much support there, and only really Dark Elhain with a little bit of help from Wurlim, a little bit of help from Syl as well. I don't think I have a lot of crit rate on my Ugo. So we want to make sure we're killing these guards, that way we don't get one shot by the Ice Golem. But we have things just fine here. Dark Elhain does a very, very good job, and I have her in Reflex set as well, so she can get possibly 2 Death Majesties in a row. I'm still looking up Draco the Gaunt. Now, I'm not thinking of him. He has increased attack and increased defense. Who is it? There's one other champion in the game who I believe has strengthened and increased defense. You guys can let me know in the comments below. Either way, he's one in a very, very small group of champions inside the game who has both of those abilities. There might only be one, if not two, three max, right? So anyway, here we go, guys. You can see everybody's staying alive, which is great. We're getting plenty of heals. When you pair a really good like support champion like Ugo, like Syl of the Drakes, with another really good support champion in Wurlim, it's gonna make progression so much easier in this game. That's why I said S tier in the beginning, right? I don't just throw that word around for just clickbait. I think that he's gonna help a lot of. Oh, wow, okay. This has never happened to me before. Ugo's the only champion left alive. She's gonna revive everybody. This is the first time that I've ever seen Ugo pull off the revive. And I ran this team like 10 times on 24 and 20 in preparation for this video. And we never had a wipe, so hey, bad RNG is a thing. I'm gonna show you guys the real battle. I'm not gonna cut it and try to, you know, slice and edit in a better one. But really cool, I must say, to see Ugo in action there, right? So that was unfortunate. Got one shot by the Ice Golem, and that I guess will happen, right? Maybe a little bit more DPS on this team would help. Gotta make sure you're killing both of those minions. Otherwise, you know, you could be prone to that. And you guys can see this run took me only about 5 minutes on stage 24. So actually pretty surprised that the times are going to be this close together. I guess it's a bad run RNG wise, but you can see here we're doing what? A decent amount of damage with that A2. Do you guys see that AoE on the A2? It's still doing some damage, right? Having the increased defense is going to get more damage out of all your defense-based damage dealers, Wurlim included, Syl of the Drakes included, right? Obviously not the other three champions on the team, but heck, you could put Wurlim on, especially for like Doom Tower progression. You could put him on a team filled with, you know, defensive-based champions, and they'd all be doing a lot more damage. So Worlim actually puts out 1.3 million damage there when all said and done. Syl of the Drakes 1.1. So still out damaging Syl of the Drakes. They both have a similar build in terms of not a lot of crit damage, but a lot of crit rate. In Dark Elhain, our damage dealer putting out a little bit more. Offense with crit rate, I'll keep it because it's legendary. We'll see what we get on rolls. Let me go ahead and show you guys a Doom Tower battle really quickly here as well. Let me just take you on. We are in hard right now. I'll take you on like floor 59. Or 49. I put this team together here, guys, just to kind of show you again. We have a debuffer in Tyrell. We have, you know, healers, a couple healers and DPS in Kale. And again, I'm showing you Doom Tower because boy, is he good as a Doom Tower or a lead, right? And you can really use him anywhere. You know, it doesn't matter what the affinity of the boss you're going against is. Doesn't matter what the affinity of, you know, the bosses or the mobs on a random floor of Doom Tower is, because again, he can fit into any team because he is a neutral affinity being void. So when all things considered, man, I think about it, right? And if you were able to get him from Battle Pass, like let's say you're a free-to-play player and you grinded Battle Pass, it's been like, what, 6 months, a year ago now? A year, maybe? It's been a while, right? The Bears, that was the Bear update as well. If you were able to get him, I think putting him with Vizix and Syl of the Drakes, all three of them on the same team, I mean, good luck killing you, right? Because you have Ally Protect taking a little bit of damage away. You have Ally Protect, you have decreased speed, you have increased defense, you have the Strengthen, you have Stun, you have Revival, you have so much out of those three champions. And then you can kind of fill in. I get tweets a lot from people asking, okay, who should I upgrade or who should my main team be? And the true answer is, you probably shouldn't have a main team unless you're very, 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 very early game. You should probably have two or three kind of quintessential champions that you play on most of your teams, probably not all. But, you know, as you evolve in this game, as your account evolves in this game, who those champions are will also change a little bit, right? So it might start out as Kale and Apothecary, and that might take you, you know, close to the end game. It might take you all the way to the end game. Both of those are great champions. But then you might pair them with this three, right? With Wurlim, with Vizix, and with Syl after a year of playing, when you get them from daily login rewards. And then after that, you guys are looking really strong with three kind of big pillars of support, right, for progression. And then you can swap out either one of those champions or add in a debuffer and a damage dealer depending on the affinity of the dungeon or whatever you're at. So I'm showing you guys fairly free-to-play friendly teams-ish. I do have Tyrell on this team, of course. But, you know, this is Doom Tower hard as well, right? So I hope this is kind of a realistic team that you could assemble. But obviously, if you have Wurlim, you're already looking really good, right? You can pair him with a lot worse champions, with a lot worse gear, and tackle easier areas in the game, such as Doom Tower normal. But I think against basically any Doom Tower boss, except for, what is it, the Griffin that steals buffs, or is it the Dragon? I always confuse who steals the buffs. I guess that wouldn't be very advantageous. But if you need the increased defense, if you want a little bit of support with the, you know, the Veils on the A1, but most importantly, just the strengthened increased defense, increased crit damage on your nuker, he pairs very well with Seer as well, okay? So I think that even endgame players can sub him in there because you're getting some unique buffs. You're getting some classic buffs and increased defense. And they're getting some unique buffs in increased crit damage, which not a ton of champions have. It's kind of one of the newer buffs to be added to the game. And then you're getting strengthened as well. And unless you have Lydia, you likely might not have a strengthened champion who you use on a regular basis as well. So for me, you pair him on a Seer team, you're getting 2 at least unique buffs. Yeah, you add the decreased crit damage, add the decreased accuracy to the equation, and you walk away with a really good support champion. And guys, we're probably just going to go ahead and end this video there. I know I did say I was going to show you more dungeons, but I think at this point, you probably get the point, right? He's a really solid champion. Hopefully I was able to convince you that now in terms of progression for the majority, not just end game, but for the majority of players out there, I think you can't get a lot better when looking for an increased defense support champion in this game. You know, who is even on the same level as him right now? I throw that question to you guys in terms of a, you know, increased defense champion, a buffer out there. There's not a ton, right? There's not a ton. Iron Brago, possibly, obviously Siphi, champions like that, Ursica, you know, those are more ally protect. I look at like ally protect and increased defense a little bit differently, but Iron Brago, really, for me, there's not a ton. There's not a ton. I think that Wurlim is a really great option for you guys, and I like that he has the crit damage and the debuffs there that cannot be resisted on top of it. Guys, thank you so much for watching until the end of this video. I appreciate you all. Let me know what you think of Worlim Frost King. Have you dusted him off? Are you using him now? Are you relying on him now? I appreciate it, and as always, take care, guys.